Hey guys, today we'll be quickly looking at how to use text in Blender. So to start, you can add it with Shift A, and then you add text. And to actually write what you want, you just have to press Tab, and then you can write normally. So you can write something, basically whatever you want. Like in any text editor, enter to create a new line, space, delete, everything works like you'd expect. So once you're done, you want to tab out, and now you can go to this menu here, which is the text menu. So now you can change things. Let's go from top to bottom. I'll just briefly go through all the settings and explain what you might want to tweak and what's kind of useless. So to start, you have the resolution. This could be useful if it's something in the background, something like this. A low resolution might be fine. You might notice that this render resolution is at 0. That just means that it's going to use the preview resolution. So whatever is in your viewport in the render, I would recommend leaving that at 0, because then you actually know how your render is going to look in the viewport instead of having to balance the two. Don't worry about text or space. Geometry is going to be quite interesting. So the first thing that you have is offset, which is kind of useful, but doesn't really work that well. So if you increase it, it literally just thickens the text. But the issue is that, for example, if I make it thicker here and the faces start overlapping, like on this E here, you'll see that in a sec. So if I increase that, as soon as it overlaps, it just completely breaks. Or here, it's not the best. It kind of works. So it might be worth trying, especially if you want to make your fonts thinner like this. Extrude, however, is really useful. So what that does is it literally just makes your text three-dimensional, so it just extrudes it up. What you might also find useful is the bevel, and that's literally just a normal bevel. Fonts work normally. If you don't know where to find fonts, I really recommend Google Fonts. And this is just a massive library of all the fonts you could ever need, so you can just scroll through there, find whatever you want, and then look at all these different styles from the same font and then download the entire family or just specific fonts that you need. So to open it, you click on this folder icon and then you go to your font, and by default, Windows already has loads of fonts pre-installed, so you can use basically anything that's .ttf in Blender without a problem. So if I open one of these, it immediately changes the font. The next settings are size and shear. So size is interesting because if you, for example, have a bevel on your object, so let me just add that quickly, and I increase the size, or let's decrease it, it might be easier to see, the bevel and the extrusion don't actually change. So if you have a small object and you want to change the bevel so that it looks nice, so that would be something like this maybe, and then you increase the size, the bevel actually stays really small, so you're gonna have to adapt it. So it might actually be better to not change the size here, but just scale up your object, because then all the ratios stay the same. Shear is actually a really cool setting. It's basically italic, but you have a slider, so you can actually choose how slanted your text is. So it's you can go positive or negative. Yeah, and this works really well. After that, you have your normal text settings. So that would be, for example, how the text is aligned. So you have things like center, where it literally just centers the text on your origin, or it goes to the left of it, basically like it would in any other program. You also have things such as character spacing, which set the distance between each of these characters, so they're not actually getting bigger or smaller, but just the spacing between them is growing or shrinking. This could be quite nice, especially if you have slanted text. Like here, it's really close together, so increasing it might make it easier to read. Word spacing is basically the same thing, but just between words. Of course, Blender just crashed, but let's continue anyways. So if you have text in multiple lines, you can also change the line spacing. Yeah, these are pretty self-explanatory. The offset XY also just offsets the whole text, X and Y. Although at that point, you might as well just move the object. That's pretty much it for all the settings in the text menu. If you want to edit it further, you can always right-click it, go to convert to, and then mesh. But what you'll notice is that the geometry is terrible. So what you can do is select everything and then search for, with F3, beautify faces. And what this does, it just cleans it up a bit. So as you can see, the before and after, it's just a bit nicer. Like if we look at these D's here, it just makes it a lot cleaner. And of course, this way you can actually change the object manually. So add things that you couldn't have done in the text settings themselves. I hope this was helpful and you've enjoyed the new format. If you have any resources or tips in Blender that you would like me to cover, just let me know in the comments. See ya!